Okay, we are recording now. So welcome everybody. Today is the November 21st SIG Contributor Experience meeting. My name is Nikita. I am filling in for Paris as host because she's on a plane right now. She was like, when she lands, she'll probably still join in. We'll see. This is also my first time hosting a meeting ever. So let me know if I miss something. So first things first, we do have a code of conduct. So please keep that in mind and be excellent to each other. I think Aaron or someone else posted the meeting notes link in the chat. So please add your names to the attendees list. We'll also need a note taker for this meeting who wants to volunteer for that. Awesome. Thank you, Bob. Let's see. Oh, so we do this every meeting. Are there any new contributors on the call who would like to introduce themselves? Going once.
So I'm new to the call. This is my first contributor experience call. I am Dawn Foster. I do open source strategy at Pivotal, and one of the things that I'm working on right now is what our Kubernetes contribution strategy should look like. So I thought I've been in open source for 20 plus years. So I've been doing this for a long time, and I thought if I was going to be looking at what we should be doing in Kubernetes, I should at least be somehow involved in the project myself. And so this seemed like a good place to start. So here I am.
Yay, welcome.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I'm like a huge fan of your collaboration talk. So super happy to see you here. Are there anyone else who want to introduce themselves? Okay. Okay, let's move on to the next item in the agenda. So we have 3 regular programs for our SIG. So one is the Thursday community meeting. The second one is the office hours that we had today. And the third one is the Meter Contributors session. Tomorrow we are going to have a community meeting, even though it's a US holiday. I think this is like the first time we're having a community meeting, even though during Thanksgiving or something. And if I am correct, Ihor is hosting that. Is that correct?
I'm hosting it, right.
Okay. I had a question. Is tomorrow's meeting also going to have a similar structure? Are we going to have demos and release updates? Contributor tip of the week?
I haven't checked the agenda yet. We have SIG scaling scheduled for tomorrow. I'm pretty sure that the meeting will be short, but we still decided to host it, at least for a few people who are going to join it.
Cool. I'll be there.
Perfect.
Yay. Do we have an update on office hours? I think Bob had something nice to say about the office hours today.
The first one went well, and the next one is in 3.5 hours. We should be good on people joining in.
Awesome. And about Meter contributors, I have an update from Paris. So we are looking for more volunteers for the December 5th edition and the January 2nd edition. If you are a regular contributor to Kubernetes and you want to mentor someone, but you don't have the time, this is an excellent opportunity for you to do so. Please sign up. And one wonderful, I just want to add it from like myself, is if you could do a code-based tour, that would be seriously amazing. And if you are a new contributor, even you can come on the call. We would love to have your insight about how you want to get started into contributing, or how you are, or even what problems you're facing to contribute. I'm pretty sure like other new contributors are also facing such similar problems. And if you have suggestions of code bases that you would like to see a tour of, please reach out to Paris or me, and we'll try to make that happen. So that should be it for Meter contributors. Does anyone have questions, comments, or concerns about this? Okay, let's move on to our project board. Let me actually share my screen.
Yeah, hi Nikita. Can you hear me? Yeah, actually, I'm new to Kubernetes. I'm contributing from last 2 months. Yeah, actually, when I go to the API side, I mean in core, I'm working on pod and conformance testing side. Okay, I'm okay fine when it's reaching the API. I mean, before the API, when it's getting called on pod creating, uh, before it goes to the core, I mean, it's getting called the API. When it's calling the API, okay, I'm struggling to, actually, I want to know how it is that pod is getting created and how that container is getting created and whole mechanism in code base. Actually, I'm able to understand by theoretically when I go to code base, I don't think I'm going in a correct way. So you said just now, you said contact you or Aaron, right?
Contact me or Paris, but I
Oh,
guess
Paris. Okay.
Aaron might also have thoughts on that.
No, I think like I know Stephen did like a brief tour of some of the code base in Kubernetes, but I personally haven't seen anything that does a real deep dive end to end of like, okay, I'm going to stand up an API server, and then here's how the endpoints get wired up, and then when an endpoint gets hit, here's how the endpoint actually calls the logic that does the thing.
Yeah, yes.
My impression is if you spent a chunk of time in the registry code base, the registry package in KK, that could be a useful thing. This is not something I'm necessarily volunteering to do because I may already be locked up tight for release 113 stuff and the steering edition of Meet Our Contributors, but that would be my suggestion if nobody else has anything. Like, I literally don't know how many people are interested in code bases on like, how do I code on top of Kubernetes versus how do I make a Kubernetes thing? Because that API machinery stuff is pretty deep.
Okay.
Yeah, so like Aaron mentioned, I would suggest to maybe start out with API machinery, the SIG API machinery, maybe hang out there and join the meeting and tell them that you'd like to see something like this, and they'll probably suggest good places to start out.
Okay.
And I'll also reach out to Paris about this for if we could do something related to this for Meet Our Contributors.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Something that just that's kind of tangential to this, but as you're going along this journey, think about how we might improve our developer guide. We need more of this type of descriptive stuff and to help people orient to doing Kubernetes internals development. And we have a large open task from contributor experience to work on improving that. So contributions welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also very important. I think like I have a task on my to-do list from a lot of time about improving documentation for client Go, and that kind of comes similar. It's kind of tangential, but it's kind of similar. So the next thing is the project board. Does anyone have anything to add before we move on to the project board? Okay, let me share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Okay. Before we move on to the blocked column, I actually want to talk about the completed column so that we can celebrate some small wins first. So Christoph did this. He removed direct read access from many folks to KK, which is kind of a huge deal because it's super important for GitHub organization hygiene. So yay about that. And yeah, I think like that's the one major thing that we've completed last week. Does anyone have questions, comments, or concerns about that? Okay. Moving on to the blocked column, the first item is the one-on-one mentoring process improvements. That's Paris. She's not here, so we'll probably skip that. I also don't think there are any further updates on that. The next one is the sub-project details in SIG.YAML.
I think the next two are me, and
okay,
I haven't
sure,
made any
please go ahead.
progress.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think like the update SIG.YAML with more working group info, wasn't that blocked on the steering committee?
Yeah.
My understanding is that like those peers are merged. So is this still blocked or can this be worked on?
I need to get back. If it's unblocked, I'll unblock it. I haven't really looked at it since I got back from China.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, sure. We will follow up on that. Moving on to the in progress column, I don't think, like, I can't really make sure if there is something that has an update, but does anyone have an update on something on the in progress column? Especially related to the Contributor Summit in Seattle.
I guess I can just mention that planning is underway. We're getting into the final stretches there, but also things had been split between KubeCon China and KubeCon North America, and with China done, those of us who've been contributing there are now also focusing in on North America. So hopefully in the next week or two, we've got everything nailed away there. I think the core planning is done, but there's kind of some shuffling in the schedule and defining content and refining content that we're looking to do in the next couple of weeks. But things seem like they're in good shape from my perspective there.
Cool. Awesome. I think that should be it.
One thing, if I can, create a README for DevStats. It's in progress column. It's already done and it's implemented in DevStats on the production. So I think this should be moved to done or anything, or maybe somebody should just confirm that it's implemented.
No, I think this is for Elsie to kind of flesh out. Oh, maybe this is about the site. Never mind then. I thought this was about describing like what it is that we do for DevStats.
Yeah, we have a DevStats project and we have an issue to create a banner on the top of DevStats page. That's already done. So I think it should be checked and eventually just move to done.
Can you like post, okay, I'll do that. So I'll just post a link with the thing that's done and I'll close the issue. So that should automatically move it to the completed column.
Okay, I'll put a link to a DevStats issue that's already finished in the chat.
Okay, that would be awesome. Thank you. Are there any other in progress issues that anyone wants to talk about?
I will be reviewing the contributor experience charter later today.
Okay, awesome.
Hopefully that can get closed out.
Yep. Is there anything else that folks would like to discuss? Okay, do we want to discuss things on the backlog? I don't think like there are updates on any of these as of now, so I guess that's it from the project board side. Okay. The next thing we have is, I have some updates from Paris. So the first thing is that the project manager role went live on the role board and discuss.kubernetes.io and on the mailing list. And she said Ihor or someone else will be tackling that and will be updating us in the next meeting. Is that correct?
If that's correct, yeah. So we have briefly discussed this question with Paris. So it's likely for us to have not a single person who will handle this, but at least a group of 2 or even more people. So I'm going to work on this. At the same time, if there are any other people who would like to focus on this role and spend just a few hours of their time during the week working on our backlog, and the project board, it would be great. So feel free to reach out to me or Paris directly, and we'll figure it out. And yeah, we'll provide a update next week at the regular meeting.
Cool. Sounds
Yeah,
good.
actually, Loic has reached out to me, and he's the first person who I'm speaking with. So yeah, thanks, Jace.
Awesome. So that looks like it's going on well. The next update is that we have selected an Outreachy intern. So Edward will be joining us, I think on December 5th. We will introduce him on the mailing list next week and on the next meeting. And he will be working on the developer guide. So like it was discussed like a few minutes ago, I think it will be super cool to include all of this in the developer guide. And the idea is that all of us from SIG Contributor Experience will be working with him and helping him and mentoring him. So we will probably, like most of you will probably be there on the calls that we will have with him. And that looks like we've completed all the items on our agenda. Does anyone have anything else they'd like to talk about? This is like the shortest ContribEx meeting in the history of ContribEx.
Since Christoph is here, I will sync up with Christoph afterwards to talk about our automation talk for the Contributor Summit. If anybody here has any crazy awesome suggestions they'd like to throw our way, you're welcome to ping us in Slack or on the Contributor Experience channel. Maybe we can make a thread. But I have an idea. We're roughly gonna, since it's supposedly to an audience of current contributors who all know how our automation works, I'm sure we don't have to educate them on all of the stuff that goes on. But we'll probably at least do like, I want to leave some room for like an AMA basically. I don't necessarily want to open us up to a great hate and have everybody ask us to fix everything, please. But I do think it's going to be a more useful session if there's a back and forth. So any seating questions y'all have would be helpful, most likely. Otherwise, I think that's all I had.
I have a follow. Sorry, Kieran, go ahead.
No, mine is very frivolous. You start.
Mine is as well. I just had a follow-up question. Is this about suggestions about how to improve the automation, or what is the current automation and how, like, explaining that to others?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the title is just like automation and CI on the project. So I felt like it would probably be most useful to give people an overview of how to interact with it, like a reminder that we have the Kubernetes org GitHub thing, a reminder that there's Prow, stuff like that. But my hope is I will have gotten some time to mine the contributor experience survey to try and bucket people's sundry comments on our automation. For example, it was kind of like 50-50 on whether or not people hated or loved Theta-Bot's stale issue closing thing. And there are a couple other pieces of feedback that I felt like were repeated. So if nothing else, I wouldn't mind summarizing that to people and seeing if that turns into some kind of like roadmappy thing that I could present. But for me, in terms of the dialogue, it's like, what are common questions that still aren't answered or things that people still didn't know about, et cetera, et cetera. I'm saying all this and Christoph isn't saying anything, so I'm sure he completely agrees with it, but we'll sort it out.
Okay, Kieran, do you want to ask your question?
Oh, yeah. I may have missed it, and I'm sorry I was late. I had to drop off my kid. Can you show me, what is your t-shirt, Aaron? I want to see it.
It was the logo that Josh posted on the ContribEx channel. It's from the Shanghai Contributor Summit. So it's like his Chinese water ink painting, whatever. I forget.
Watercolor.
Watercolor. Yeah, there you go. So
And the
you got,
dragon.
like, the dragon. And then the thing he shared with me is, I don't think you can quite see it. The dragon doesn't, the original draft of the logo, one of the dragon's feet had 4 toes, and that was a no-go because 4 is an unlucky number in China. So Dragon has
There was
3
some
toes.
serious like shedding over the toes.
Yeah.
I think the dragon should have 7 toes.
Yeah.
That's what I was half thinking you were going to say that. Okay, well, that's too bad. I was hoping it was the release team T-shirt because I thought it looked cool. But now it
Sure.
means that I just have to admire it from afar because I was not in China.
There's supposedly a lot more of them.
Yeah, Josh supposedly has extras, and I do have your release team T-shirt. I have a release team T-shirt for you and for Cole. Got to get those out at some point.
So there should be a rule that if you've ever led a release that you get the cool T-shirts. Just saying. So.
You're gonna have to talk to Mr. Pepper about that. But I
SIG
will.
release is open at all times for all volunteers. Please come and help.
Man, I should get a life reward though. That's not fair. Whatever. All right, fine. Speaking of release, don't we need to start kind of thinking about the shadow for this next release and kind of that stuff? Is that?
Yeah, I had put out a call on the SIG release meeting yesterday for the shadow. If anybody here is interested, my thing was like, I will be the release lead for 1.14, but I only want to do it if I have a solid shadow, because history has taught me I tend to get yanked around in different places, and I feel like it would be a disservice to the community if I flew this solo. So if you or know anybody or you yourself are interested, come chat with me and we'll see if we can figure it out. I will probably send an email out about this later this week or early next week. That's probably probably next week, just to make sure I don't hit the Thanksgiving lull.
Yeah, I think like Ben signed up to be the release lead shadow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I will catch up with Ben.
Yeah.
I have another serious question. If somebody knows anyone in SIG Docs that would be willing to give a short introduction on how to contribute to Docs during the new contributor workshop, somehow this fell through the cracks, and I don't know if I have a current volunteer for that. I also just don't know anyone in SIG Docs, so if somebody has a lead, send it my way. Hey, Noah, you're grinning. Oops.
I might be able to send something.
I can ask Zach or Luke from CNCF who are working on SIG Docs. Zach is a lead of SIG Docs, so I can ask him if he's able to.
Yeah, Andrew Chin or Jared Body would be my. Yeah.
We have enough folks.
Now, I just have to call out how great is a project that it's easy for everybody in the room to know somebody who's on Docs. Like, show me another project where that's true.
I'm taking notes. I don't think I know Jennifer at all.
Rondeau?
Oh, yes. Never mind. Too many Jennifers.
That's true.
And that's Zach Corlison, right?
Yep, great.
Corlison. And so I have Zach, Andrew, Jennifer. Any other suggestions?
And Luke Perkins from CNCF.
Luke.
Perkins?
Okay. Perkins? As in Ann Perkins? Okay, as in Ann Perkins. Okay. Cool, thank you. I'll try and hunt them down.
Okay.
Actually, quick thing. It looks like Zach already chimed in and said that he would be there on the thread.
Which thread?
The SIG meet and greet.
Right. I'm talking about just a big. It's more of a formal presentation for everyone.
Oh. I'm sorry.
It's informal. That's just a like, hey, here, get to know people. People were
sorry
like,
about that.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's good to know that there's confusion because I need to follow up on that as well, but I'm going to do that after the holiday. Thanks.
Okay. I had I want to discuss one thing. We did talk about this on the ContribEx channel a lot about trivial PRs. I am not talking about a solution per se, but some people reached out to me on DM asking if they should hold PRs which have like 1 or 2 typos. I just want to get an understanding whether we agree on holding or not.
That's going to be a tough, I feel like that's a tough bike sheddy thing. I didn't really have a chance to look at scroll back, but I did notice there's been a lot of discussion about it again. I know a couple of my peers in SIG testing, what am I trying to say here? Like, I'm really in favor of letting typos in and letting people contribute typos. It's the easiest, lowest friction way to get in. But like at some point we start to notice that somebody's making nothing but typo fixes. And if it starts to like eat up reviewer bandwidth, that's kind of when it's a problem for us. But it's unclear to me how we can quantify like how much pain it is actually inflicting on us, or if it's just an inconvenience that we're noticing more of.
I like the idea of adding a label, like label trivial, but something a little less potentially offensive.
The problem is there's sometimes really critical fixes that involve changing one character. And there are often a lot of bug fixes that are like one line. So we do label PRs as size extra small, but that doesn't necessarily quantify the importance or value of the PR. And I really would rather we avoid the idea of attributing value to contributions. That begins to be a very slippery slope. To me, it's more about if there's pain being inflicted on people here, to find a way to mitigate that.
I think the best way that we could do this, now granted this requires somebody to step up and do it, but if we had, I don't want to call it a feature branch, but a branch, a particular owner that handled typos, and if we documented and people knew, hey, those fixes, they go to this person, there's a person there that reviews them, and periodically batches that up in a combined PR into whichever appropriate repositories, that could mitigate some of the review overhead, I'm thinking. If that's a trusted person, then when they go to the upstream repo, it's a pretty straightforward, yep, a lightweight review, but that might be batching 100 or more trivial reviews. That person maybe even worked with the people to get the CLA sign and all that initial sort of stuff that might be friction for others if everybody in the community is bumping into all of these things coming in, but also still facilitates the newcomer getting through that, because it's friction on them as well to just get that first contribution in. And then it would be a place where somebody would maybe notice and be able to highlight if there was the abuse or whatever we want to call it, gaming the statistics.
Feels like
I would like to say something.
An engineering effort, personally.
Sorry.
One of my thoughts is that like the CLA, walking people through the CLA, I like the idea of fanning that out to multiple contributors to deal with, rather than inflicting all of that on one single person to deal with over and over and over again.
I want to say something about the typos. I too have sent people to do typos as their first pull request. I have backed up from that because I have noticed a little bit of backlash in the community. However, I think it matters. Two things I want to know. One, if it's someone's first contribution, I think it is 100% fine. I just don't. It's hard enough to make a contribution. My first contribution was a typo fix, and somehow it wound up being removing all the munger lines later from all the docs. It was great. Anyway. But it started out as a typo fix, okay? If I hadn't started out, then we would still have like munger lines sitting around in all the community docs. Then two, I want to know what the actual numbers on this are. It sounds like something where people are just like, oh, it's a typo, and I don't know what the actual do we know what the actual impact of this is? Do we have any kind of projection on how bothersome this is? How many of these type of fixes do we see? Are people like annoyed with them on, are there certain reviewers that see nothing but typo fixes and it stops them from doing work? So that's just kind of my 2 cents. I'm like, I want to know what the actual annoyance here is. It's easy to see people being annoyed. That's 1 point. There's 1 data point, but what's the actual volume of annoyance?
Right.
Well,
right.
from a personal perspective, yep.
Please
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, just a note. So from a personal perspective, it's more about so the negative impact of the type of fixing is not about the time of reviewers, but more about the bad playing and playing with statistics. So this is the like from my personal perspective, this is the major downside from this. So as someone mentioned in one of the threads on Slack, yeah, that's gaming dev stats or gaming Stackolytics or any other tool that measures the contribution. So as far as I remember, in contributor experience like channel, it was mentioned that some companies are even requiring from you that you should have like big number of contributions to this or that project, and this makes other people to contribute into this project in a way that is not really effective. And we're speaking here about the typos. So I absolutely agree with Gwyn, and my personal first contribution was also the typo fix. And we definitely should welcome people to start working on the contributions with Kubernetes, even with the typo fixes. But we have to define the policy. How can we avoid some bad game in this area? So like the brief recap. So I'm good with typo fixes. This is really fine, but we have to avoid some really bad experience with that.
Is this something that's in the code of conduct, or is it something that could be put in the code of conduct? Because what they're doing is something that's detrimental to the project, and a code of conduct violation might be a better way to deal with this, because then you can roll their commits out and then they don't get to commit anymore. Or I don't know I should go read the code of conduct and see exactly what's in it. I glanced through it. But
it's pretty much just
as someone whose first contribution this week was a typo fix, I want to make sure that we're not that there's not side effects to this, whatever solution we come up with.
I think you bring up a really good point, that it seems to be against the spirit of the code of conduct to game dev stats. I don't know that we need to change the code of conduct to specifically call this out, because I think you're right. It's already kind of part of it. What we can do is, when we talk about first contributions and typo fixes, we can remind people to, do that in the spirit of improving the community and the project. That would kind of fall in line with, like, if it's your first contribution, by all means have it be a typo fix. Maybe if it's your second contribution, try and make the whole paragraph more readable.
I don't care if anybody games dev stats. Speaking as a member of the steering committee who did a dev stats based selection thing, do you really think we're going to use the exact same criteria now that everybody knows how to game it? Like, if somebody wants to like go off and boost their contribution stats based on whatever project, they're going to find a way to do it. I don't really feel the need to have to defend against that. I do care if it's wasting your time, and I do care if it's impeding the velocity of the project. But I feel like I haven't found, I don't know that we're really we haven't quantified that yet. And back to like echoing what Gwyn said, I really want to understand how much of a problem this is and measure the impact of the problem. I see Christoph has raised his hand.
Yeah, George had also raised his hand from a long time, so.
I'll go after Christoph.
Okay.
He's probably going to say what I say.
Sorry, I'm just multitasking. I wanted to just like hard +1 the idea of collecting data to actually like prove that this is a problem. I know, like, as far as what I see in the community repo, like, yes, there's a decent amount of it, but I don't think, like, it's not necessarily impacting anybody's review bandwidth yet. But if it is in other repos, if it is in other parts of the project that may have fewer contributors and are busier and are seeing more of an influx of it, I want to collect some like real hard data so then we can figure out the best way to tackle it. Because right now there's a whole bunch of anecdotes, and I've heard a bunch of anecdotes, and everybody's heard a bunch of anecdotes here, but it's getting that hard data so that we at least know, because if we have a particular statistic or metric or way of measuring it, then if we go and change something, we also have a way of measuring, did that change have the impact that we wanted it to have?
George, do you want to?
Sure. Sorry, I'm late. I had a call run over. So the policy we do have is in the pull requests document. It's not in the root of the contributor guide, so perhaps it's a surfacing issue. And I would think that on the code of conduct thing, I think it would be like a repeated violation. So in the bug, I kind of said, is there a way to rate limit this? Like, you know, if you've done 3 extra small commits and you're not part of the org PRs on the last day or whatever the numbers are, right? Like in Stack Overflow, if you're a new user, it doesn't let you do things until you earn enough reputation to do stuff. So I was wondering is like, if you see a whole bunch of really small little ones come in a short amount of time, it gets flagged, put in a queue somewhere, and it's like, hi, welcome to Kubernetes. This is really great and stuff, but by the way, here's our trivial policy. You know, Nikita, remember, I think you talked someone through, hey, here's how you level up to kind of make it look like, hey, look, it's great that you're doing this, but maybe you're smarter than this. You can maybe, you know, and that'll help weed out the people who aren't like really serious about it. And then that way, like, I kind of feel like, especially if they're doing it in Kubernetes, that like, it's like, hey, if you're serious about this, I would rather you do this in the community repo and bother me, you know, than like doing it in KK itself. So my idea was kind of just like, maybe there's a way to kind of figure out which ones are exactly spamming in a, you know, if they are indeed spamming.
Yeah, I think like we all agree that we need data and metrics before deciding anything. So I created an issue a few days ago, so I'll just add a comment on that we need data. I might not go finding data for it right away, but I will add a comment that the next step should be to find data about it. Does anyone else have anything else to add to this?
Yeah, I think in the sense of collecting data, it's going to be important to think about. Sorry, I'm still con crud. It's going to be important to keep in mind all the gear switching that goes along with this, because I think that's going to be one of the biggest problems, not necessarily the time that's spent reviewing, and even necessarily saying, well, reviewing a typo takes X number of seconds or minutes, but the whole, we're knocking people out of their train of thought, and that's probably going to be a bigger impact than the actual reviewing themselves. So if we can take all of that and combine it together, then perhaps whether or not it's a problem, just binning it all together might solve a problem whether or not it exists with very little effort.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'll just add a comment on the issue with everything we just talked about, and maybe link to the meeting notes. And then we can bike shed on the issue of what we want to do. So there's also a record of what we're discussing. Looks like we reached the end of our agenda. Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, I need that LGTM sticker. Okay, then. So I need that sticker. Don't show it again. Will those stickers be at? Will all these stickers be at KubeCon?
Yes, yes, they will be, including famous shrug person.
Yay!
There,
Wow.
there it is.
Okay, I'm attending KubeCon just for these. Awesome. So let's call it a day, and you all get like 20 minutes of your life back. So thank you very much, and have a nice day or night, depending on where you are. Bye-bye.